Today we're going to be talking about one-step equations with rational numbers. So we already worked with some that have whole numbers. Now we're looking at rational numbers, which means we're working with decimals and we're working with fractions. The decimals shouldn't be that much different. You've got a calculator. It's going to do the work for you. The fractions are the ones that you got to really focus on. They are a little bit trickier. So it's going to be the same exact process. We're going to draw a line down our equal sign. And I'm going to highlight my variable so I know which side we're looking at. On that side, the operation that's in the equation is subtraction, which means the solving operation is the opposite, which is to add. So if I'm subtracting 96.5, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to add that same number, 96.5. But if I do it to the left side, I also have to do it to the right side. On the left side, it should cancel out to 0. Well, x plus 0 is just x. On the right side, we've got a calculator to do the hard part for us. 126 plus 96.5, you should get 222 and a half. 222 and 5 tenths. All right, number 2. Again, first step, draw that line down our equal sign. We're going to highlight our variable so we know which side of the equation we're looking at. So this time we're looking at the right side. When you have a number written right next to a variable, that operation is multiplication. The opposite of multiplying is to divide. X is being multiplied by 8.5, so the opposite is to divide by 8.5. Remember that we want to get rid of using that the division sign. We're going to use that fraction bar to show division. If I divide the right side by 8.5, I need to divide the left side by 8.5. On the right side, anything divided by itself should cancel out to 1. 8.5 divided by 8.5 is 1x, or we can write that as just x. On the left, we've got a calculator again. It's going to do the hard part for us. 40 divided by 8.5 is about 4.705, so on. I'm just going to round that to about 4.7. All right, so we did 2 with the decimals. We're not spending as much time on those because, again, we've got the calculators to do the hard work for us. We're really going to focus in on these fraction ones, okay? So, again, first step, draw our line down the equal sign. Second step, highlight our variable. Okay, the operation that we see here is addition, which means we're going to have to solve by doing the opposite, which is subtracting. Before I do any of that work, though, anytime we see fractions, we're going to rewrite right away. So I'm going to write a note to myself. I'm going to rewrite. When we have addition and subtraction of fractions, we need common denominators. Okay, so I'm going to look at our denominators. We got 4 and we got 8. The least common denominator, the lowest number that they both multiply into is 8. So I'm going to rewrite this fraction with denominators of 8. 4 times 2 equals 8, so we do the same on the top. 3 times 2 is 6. 8 times 1 is 8, so do the same on the top. 7 times 1 is 7. Now we already have them with common denominators. It's going to make it much easier to solve. So I'm going to go back again. I'm going to highlight the side that has the variable. We already talked about this. We have addition in the problem, so we are going to solve by doing the opposite, which is to subtract 6/8 from both sides. Now when we're looking at that, these should cancel each other out. 6/8 minus 6/8 is 0. We're left with just x on the left side. Here it's already lined up nice and vertical for us. 7 minus 6 is 1/8. Let's try that again. Those fractions can be tricky. Let's try it again for number 4 here. So first step, draw that line down our equal sign. Highlight the side that has the variable on it. Let's look at the operations that we have. We have addition in the problem. which means our solving operation is subtraction. Same thing, we're going to rewrite it, finding that common denominator. Okay, the denominators that we have here are 15 and 6. Again, if you don't know the least common denominator, least common multiple, use your multiplication chart to help you. The lowest number that 15 and 6 both multiply into is 30. So I'm going to rewrite these fractions with a denominator of 30. So my whole numbers stay the same, but our denominators are going to change. 15 times what is 30? 15 times 2 is 30, so we're going to do the same to the top. 4 times 2 is 8. On the bottom here, 6 times what is 30? 6 times 5 is 30, so do the same to the top. 1 times 5 is 5. Now we have it set up nice for us. So again, I'm going to highlight the side that has the variable. It's the right side. We were adding, so the opposite is to subtract that same number. Minus 5 and 5/30. If I do it from the right side, I need to do it from the left side. So on the right side it cancels out, we're left with just x. On the left side, I'm going to subtract my fractions first. 8 minus 5 is 3/30. 12 minus 5 is 7. So you should always go back and double check. We're not going to be as harsh about that. But if you check 3/30, you'll see that those both divide by 3. So our whole number would stay 7, but 3 divided by 3 is 1. 30 divided by 3 is 10. So you also could write it simplified like this. Let's do a couple more practice problems with fractions again, because those tend to be our trickiest ones. So number 5. First step, drawing my line down the equal sign. Second step, highlighting the variable in the equation. When I have a number written right next to the variable, that operation is multiplication, which means we solve by doing the opposite, which is to divide. Okay? So as I said before, anytime we see fraction problems, we're going to rewrite the problem. Okay? So how I'm going to rewrite this is we want to have two problems that have that have fractions in it. I see a fraction, or both sides have fractions. This has a fraction, this is not a fraction. So I'm going to rewrite this as a fraction. 2/5 x equals, I'm going to write 18 as a fraction as writing it 18/1. Okay? Now again, looking at the side that has the variable, we said it was multiplication, so the opposite is to divide. Every other time that we've had division, we've said don't use the division sign, use that fraction bar. When you have fractions, they're kind of the exception to the rule. I'm okay with you using the division sign. Okay? If I'm dividing the left side by 2/5, because 2/5 divided by 2/5 is 1x, we're left with just x. I'm going to divide the right side by 2/5. Now we have fractions, so now with division of fractions, remember we have to keep it, switch it, flip it. I like writing it there so I don't make the mistake. Keep the first number, switch it from division to multiplication, flip it from 2/5 to 5/2. Now that we have it as a multiplication problem, I'm going to highlight my two sets of diagonals. So on the left side, we still have x equals. Over here, I'm going to write my blank fraction. 18 and 2, I'm going to use my factor chart. Again, if you don't remember, that's this chart right here. To simplify, 18 and 2, the biggest number they both divide by is 2. 18 divided by 2 is 9. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 5 and 1, their greatest common factor is 1. 1 divided by 1 is 1. 5 divided by 1 is 5. Now we can just multiply across. 9 times 5 is 45 over 1 times 1 is 1. So you can write this as 45 over 1, or if you want to just write that as 45, both are okay answers. All right, one more like that. That tends to be kind of the trickiest types of fraction problems here. A little bit more steps than the others. So again, first step, draw a line down the equal sign. Second step, highlight the side with the variable, so we know which side it's on. When you have a number written right next to a variable, that means multiplication. So the opposite is to divide. Anytime we have a fraction problem, the first thing we're doing is we're rewriting. Okay, so we need to make these improper. If you need to write yourself a note, write yourself a note. Okay. This already is a fraction, so I'm just going to rewrite it as 3/4 x equals. Here we need to make this improper. 1 times 6 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So I get 7 over that original denominator of 6. Now that we've rewritten it, I'm going to go into the actual solving process. So again, we've got our side with our variable. We're multiplying, so the opposite is to divide. We're saying it's okay to use the division sign here. On the left, it should cancel out to x equals. On the right, we also need to divide by 3/4, so we're doing the same thing to both sides. Since they're already both fractions, all we need to do is keep it, switch it, flip it. Keep our first number the same, 7 over 6. Switch it from division to multiplication. Flip it from 3 over 4 to 4 over 6. 4 over 3. Now that we've got a multiplication problem, I'm going to highlight my diagonals with the two different colors. We still have x equals on the left side. I'm going to set up my blank fraction. 7 and 3. The biggest number they both divide by is 1. 7 divided by 1 is 7. 3 divided by 1 is 3. 6 and 4, their greatest common factor is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And now for our last step, all we're doing is we're just multiplying across. 7 times 2 is 14. 3 times 3 is 9. All right, now go ahead and do the you try on your own.